Welcome to Monk's Temple. Let us begin by simply arriving. Feel the surface beneath you. Notice the air on your skin. Listen to the sounds around you, near and far. There is nowhere else you need to be right now. This moment, this breath, this presence is completely enough. You have carried enough for one lifetime. Right now, you are allowed to simply be. I want to speak with you today about something that touches every human life without exception. It visits us in the deep hours of the night when sleep will not come. It visits us when a certain song plays on the radio or a familiar scent drifts through the air unexpectedly. It visits us when we look in the mirror and wonder how we became who we are, how we arrived at this particular place in our lives. I am speaking about the past. Not the past as a simple collection of neutral memories, but the past as a weight we carry. The past is a wound that will not heal no matter how much time passes. The past is a prison we build for ourselves, brick by brick, with our own thoughts and our own attention. There is a story I once heard about a man who lived in a small village beside a wide and powerful river. For most of his life, he had been a fisherman. His boat had carried him through storms and calm waters alike. It had been his livelihood, his companion, his home away from home on those long days when the fish were running and the work was good. But as he grew older, his body could no longer manage the nets and the heavy oars. So one day, he pulled the boat ashore for the last time. He dragged it up onto the riverbank and left it there, thinking he would return to it someday. But he could not leave it completely. Every morning, he would walk down to that boat and drag it a little further inland. He tied it to a tree near his small house. He spent his days sitting beside it, polishing its weathered wood, remembering the fish he had caught, the sunsets he had watched from its deck, the storms he had somehow survived through skill and luck. The boat became his entire world, the center around which everything else revolved. Years passed in this way. The wood began to rot. The paint peeled away in long, curling strips. And the man grew thin and pale, for he spent all his time beside this decaying vessel instead of in the village, instead of with people, instead of actually living his remaining years. One day, a child from the village approached him with the honest curiosity that only children possess. The child asked, "Sir, why do you sit with this old boat all day? Why don't you come play with us?" The man looked at the child with sad, tired eyes and said, "This boat carried me through my entire life. Without it, who would I be?" This is precisely what we do with our past memories. We drag them onto dry land where they no longer serve any purpose. We tie them to our hearts with ropes of attention and obsession. We sit beside them and polish them with our thoughts, day after day, year after year. And slowly, imperceptibly, they become our identity. We forget that the boat was meant to be used on moving water, not carried on solid land. We forget that memories were meant to inform us, not to define us entirely. We forget that we are not the boat. We are the one who once sailed it. The past exists. This is undeniable and must be accepted. Things happened. Words were spoken. Choices were made. Some brought joy, others brought pain. Some brought pride, others brought deep shame. But here is the question that determines the quality of your entire life from this moment forward. Are you the one who experienced the past, or are you the one still living inside it? There is a profound and essential difference between these two states of being. When you experience something fully, you learn from it, you feel it completely, and then you integrate it into your being as wisdom. The experience becomes part of your story, but it does not become the whole story. When you live inside the past, however, you are no longer learning. You are simply repeating. You are replaying the same tape, feeling the same painful emotions, telling yourself the same story over and over, hoping that somehow the ending will change this time. But the ending never changes. The past is fixed. It is the one thing in this universe that is completely, utterly, absolutely unchangeable. And yet, we spend so much of our precious energy trying to change it. We think endlessly about what we could have said differently. We imagine what would have happened if we had made another choice. We punish ourselves mercilessly for not knowing then what we know now. This is the great trap of the human mind. We have been given this incredible capacity for memory, this gift that allows us to learn and grow and pass on wisdom to those who come after us. But when that gift is misused, when it is turned against us, it becomes a source of endless suffering. If this resonates with you, if you have ever felt trapped by a memory you cannot seem to escape no matter how hard you try, I invite you to subscribe to Monk's Temple. This is a community of people walking the path together, learning to lay down their burdens and find peace in the present moment. The button is below. It is a small step, but it is a step in the right direction. Now let us go deeper together. Let us explore why we hold on to the past so tightly, even when it causes us nothing but pain. Because within that answer lies the seed of your complete liberation. Let us now explore why we hold on to the past so tightly. This is not a simple question, and the answer reveals much about how the human mind operates. From a psychological perspective, our brains are wired for one primary purpose: survival. Every neural pathway, every chemical reaction, every cognitive function exists because it helped our ancestors survive long enough to pass on their genes. This includes our memory systems. When something painful happens, your brain takes note. It flags that experience as important, as potentially life-threatening. It stores the details with special care so that you might avoid similar situations in the future. This worked wonderfully on the savannas of ancient Africa. If you barely escaped a predator at a certain watering hole, your brain made sure you never forgot that location. That memory kept you alive. But here is the problem. Your brain cannot distinguish between a physical threat to your survival and an emotional wound to your sense of self. It uses the same system for both. So when someone humiliated you in front of your classmates 40 years ago, your brain treated that event with the same urgency as a predator attack. It stored every detail. It created strong neural pathways so you would never forget. It wanted to protect you from future humiliation. And now, 40 years later, you are still carrying that memory. You are still feeling that shame. You are still avoiding situations that might trigger a similar response. Your brain thinks it is protecting you. In reality, it is imprisoning you. The Buddha understood this mechanism long before modern neuroscience confirmed it. He spoke of something called the sana, which we might translate as perception or memory. He taught that the mind labels every experience, every sensation, every thought. It says, this is good, or this is bad, or this is neutral. And once that label is applied, the mind creates a habit of returning to that labeled experience, especially if the label was bad or painful. The mind thinks it is being helpful by keeping these memories fresh. It thinks it is protecting you from future harm. But the Buddha also taught something revolutionary. He taught that these memories, these perceptions, are not solid. They are not permanent. They are not who you are. They are simply phenomena arising and passing away in the vast space of your awareness. They have no substance of their own. They only have the power you give them through your attention. There is a story about a young monk who came to his teacher with a heavy heart. He had done something in his past, before becoming a monk, that haunted him terribly. He could not eat. He could not sleep. He could not meditate. The memory of this act consumed him completely. He begged his teacher for help. The teacher listened patiently and then said, "Go to the forest and find the largest boulder you can carry. Bring it back to me." The young monk was confused but obedient. He went into the forest and found a massive boulder. He struggled and strained and finally managed to carry it back to the teacher, placing it at his feet with great effort. The teacher looked at the boulder and said, "Good. Now carry it to the other side of the monastery and bring it back." Again, the young monk struggled. He carried the boulder across the monastery and back, sweating and exhausted. The teacher said, "Do this 100 times." The young monk, trusting his teacher completely, began to carry the boulder back and forth. After the 50th trip, he was barely able to stand. His arms shook. His back ached. His legs trembled. Finally, after the 100th trip, he collapsed before his teacher, utterly spent. The teacher looked at him with great compassion and said, "Now put the boulder down." The young monk, confused, said, "But it is already down. I placed it at your feet." The teacher smiled gently and said, "Exactly. The boulder has been on the ground this entire time. You were never required to carry it. You chose to pick it up, and you have been choosing to carry it ever since. The same is true of your memory. The event happened. It is in the past. It is on the ground. But you have been picking it up and carrying it every single day, wearing yourself out completely. No one requires you to carry it. You can simply let it lie where it belongs. This is the liberating truth. The memory exists, yes. But carrying it is a choice. A choice you may have forgotten you were making. A choice that has become so habitual that it feels like part of who you are. But it is still a choice. And choices can be changed. Think about that for a moment. What would it feel like to simply let the boulder lie where it fell? What would it feel like to stop carrying the weight of something that happened years ago, decades ago? What would it feel like to walk through your life without that constant ache in your heart? This is not about forgetting. This is about releasing. This is about recognizing that the memory is not a command. It is not a life sentence. It is simply a mental event. And you, the awareness behind that mental event, are completely free. Let us now address something that may seem contradictory. I have been speaking about letting go of the past, about releasing memories, about not carrying the boulder. But here is a truth that might surprise you. The path to peace is not found in trying to forget. In fact, trying to forget is one of the surest ways to ensure that a memory stays with you forever. Consider this simple experiment. Right now, I want you to try very hard not to think about a pink elephant. Do not picture its large ears. Do not imagine its long trunk. Do not see its color in your mind. For the next 30 seconds, do absolutely everything in your power to avoid thinking about a pink elephant. What happened? The pink elephant probably appeared immediately. The more you tried to push it away, the more present it became. This is the fundamental law of the mind. Whatever you resist, persists. Whatever you fight, grows stronger. Whatever you try to forget, your memory holds on to more tightly. This is not a failure on your part. This is simply how the mind works. When you declare war on a thought, when you label it as an enemy to be defeated, you are giving that thought enormous power. You are saying to your brain, this is incredibly important. This must be eliminated at all costs. And your brain, being the loyal servant that it is, responds by keeping that thought front and center so you can continue your battle against it. I once met a woman who had suffered a terrible betrayal. Someone she loved deeply had broken her trust in the worst possible way. She came to me and said, I have tried everything to forget. I have prayed. I have meditated. I have repeated affirmations. I have thrown myself into work. I have moved to a new city. But no matter what I do, the memory follows me. It is with me when I wake up. It is with me when I fall asleep. It is destroying my life. I asked her a simple question. How many times a day do you try to forget this memory? She thought for a moment and said, hundreds of times. Constantly. Every time it comes up, I push it away. I said to her, then you are thinking about this memory hundreds of times a day. You are giving it your attention hundreds of times a day. You are feeding it with your energy constantly. No wonder it is so strong. She looked confused. But what else can I do? I cannot just let it stay there. It hurts too much. And this is the heart of the matter. When a memory causes pain, our natural reaction is to recoil from it, to fight it, to push it away. But this natural reaction is precisely what keeps the memory alive and painful. There is another way. It is not a way of fighting. It is a way of allowing. It is not a way of forgetting. It is a way of letting fade. And these are two completely different things. Imagine you have a wound on your arm. It is deep and painful. If you keep poking that wound, checking to see if it still hurts, pulling off the scab to look at it, pressing on it to feel the pain, how will it ever heal? It will remain open and raw forever. But if you clean it once, bandage it gently, and then leave it alone, something remarkable happens. Your body knows what to do. It sends healing cells to the area. It slowly, patiently, rebuilds the damaged tissue. Over time, the wound closes. A scar may remain, but the pain fades. The wound becomes just a mark, a reminder, but not an open injury. This is what it means to let a memory fade. It is not about erasing the scar. It is about stop poking the wound. It is about giving your mind the space and time it needs to do what it naturally does, heal. The Buddhist teaching on this is both simple and profound. The mind, like the body, has an innate capacity for healing. But this capacity can only function when we stop interfering. When we stop obsessing. When we stop fighting. The Buddha compared the mind to clear water. If you take a glass of muddy water and you keep shaking it, stirring it, trying to make the mud disappear, what happens? The water stays muddy. But if you set the glass down on a table and leave it completely still, the mud gradually settles to the bottom. The water becomes clear on its own. Not because you did something, but because you stopped doing. Your mind is the same. The muddy memories, the painful thoughts, they will settle on their own if you stop stirring them with your attention. They will fade on their own if you stop refreshing them with your obsession. They will lose their power on their own if you stop giving them your energy. There is a famous story in the Buddhist tradition about a monk named Angulimala. Before becoming a monk, he was a brutal murderer. He had killed so many people that he wore a necklace of their fingers. That was his past. That was his memory. That was the weight he carried. When he finally met the Buddha, he was consumed with remorse. He thought there could be no forgiveness for someone like him. But the Buddha did not tell him to forget. The Buddha did not tell him to fight his memories. The Buddha simply said, "I have stopped. You must stop too." Angulimala understood. He stopped running from his past. He stopped fighting his memories. He stopped stirring the muddy water. He sat still with his mind, allowing it to settle. And over time, the man who had been a murderer became one of the most peaceful and compassionate beings of his time. Not because his past disappeared, but because he stopped carrying it. You can do the same. Not by forgetting, but by allowing. Not by fighting, but by letting be. Let us now explore what it actually means to let a memory fade. This is a practical question, not just a philosophical one. You cannot simply tell yourself to stop caring about something that has caused you deep pain. The mind does not work that way. But there are specific, actionable steps you can take. These steps are rooted in both ancient Buddhist wisdom and modern psychological understanding. The first step is recognition. When a painful memory arises, you must learn to see it clearly for what it is. Not as a monster, not as an enemy, not as an unchangeable truth about who you are. But simply as a thought. A mental event. A collection of neurons firing in a particular pattern. This may sound too simple, too reductionist. But try it for yourself. The next time a memory haunts you, pause for a moment and say quietly to yourself, "Ah, there is a thought." Not, "There is my terrible shame." Not, "There is proof that I am a failure." Just, "There is a thought." This small act of recognition creates something incredibly valuable: space. Between you and the thought, a tiny gap appears. In that gap, you are no longer completely identified with the memory. You are the one observing the memory. And the one who observes is always free, always at peace, always untouched by what it observes. There is a story about a woman who lived alone in a small cottage at the edge of a forest. One night, she was awakened by a strange noise. She lit a candle and went to investigate. In the corner of her room, she saw a terrifying shape. It was large and dark and seemed to be moving toward her. Her heart pounded. Her hands trembled. She was frozen with fear. But then, something told her to hold the candle higher. She raised the light, and in its glow, she saw that the terrifying shape was nothing but her own coat hanging on a hook, swaying gently in the breeze from an open window. In that moment, the monster disappeared. It had never been a monster at all. It was just a coat. But in the darkness, without proper light, her mind had transformed it into something terrifying. This is exactly what happens with past memories. In the darkness of your unconscious identification with them, they appear monstrous. They appear huge and threatening. But when you bring the light of simple awareness to them, when you hold up the candle of recognition and say, "Ah, this is just a thought," their power begins to dissolve. The second step is allowing. Once you have recognized the thought as a thought, you must allow it to be there without fighting it. This is counterintuitive. Everything in you wants to push it away, to escape it, to make it stop. But pushing creates more resistance. Allowing creates peace. Imagine you are sitting by a river. On the river, various boats pass by. Some are beautiful. Some are ugly. Some carry pleasant cargo. Some carry things that smell bad. Your natural tendency might be to try to stop the ugly boats, to push them away, to prevent them from coming near you. But you cannot stop a river. The boats will come whether you want them or not. The only thing you can control is your reaction to them. The thoughts in your mind are like boats on a river. They come and go according to conditions you cannot fully control. Some are pleasant. Some are painful. But you are not the river. You are the bank. You are the one sitting on the shore, watching the boats pass by. When you identify with your thoughts, you jump into the river and grab onto the boats. You let them carry you away. You become lost in the current. But when you remember that you are the bank, you can sit peacefully and watch even the most painful thoughts drift by without being swept away. The third step is returning. After you have recognized the thought and allowed it to be there, you gently bring your attention back to something neutral in the present moment. Your breath. The feeling of your feet on the floor. The sounds in the room. This is not a violent act of repression. It is a gentle act of redirection. You are not trying to kill the thought. You are simply choosing where to place your attention. Think of it like this. You are in a room with many doors. Behind one door, there is a loud, angry noise. Behind another door, there is calm music playing. Your natural curiosity might draw you toward the angry noise. You might open that door again and again, even though it hurts your ears. But you have a choice. You can close that door gently and walk toward the door with the calm music. You can choose to listen to something more peaceful. The angry noise may still be there behind its door. You may still hear faint echoes of it. But you are no longer standing in that room, letting it blast your ears. This is the practice. Recognition. Allowing. Returning. Again and again. Not perfectly. Not without fail. But persistently, gently, patiently. This is how memories fade. Not because you destroyed them, but because you stopped feeding them with your attention. Not because you won a war against them, but because you made peace with their presence and chose to focus on something else. Let us now examine something that may be the most difficult aspect of this entire journey. I am speaking about self-forgiveness. For many people, the past memories that haunt them most are not memories of what others did to them, but memories of what they themselves did. The mistakes. The failures. The moments when they were not the person they wished they had been. These memories carry a special kind of weight because the person we cannot forgive is often the one in the mirror. There is a story about a potter who lived in an ancient city. He was known throughout the land for his beautiful ceramics. Kings and merchants would travel great distances to purchase his work. But one day, while moving a large vase that had taken him months to create, he stumbled. The vase fell and shattered into 1,000 pieces. The potter was devastated. He fell to his knees and began to weep. He picked up one of the broken pieces and held it in his hand, staring at it with such intensity that people passing by stopped to watch. Days passed. Then weeks. Then months. The potter did not create any new work. He simply sat in his workshop, holding that single broken piece of pottery, mourning the vase that could have been. His friends tried to console him. They said, "It was an accident. These things happen. You have made thousands of beautiful vases. Make another." But the potter would not listen. He said, "You do not understand. This was my masterpiece. Nothing I ever make will equal what I have lost." Years went by in this way. The potter grew old and bitter. His workshop fell into ruin. His hands forgot their skill. And still he sat, holding that broken piece, telling anyone who would listen about the vase that should have been. One day, a young girl wandered into his workshop. She saw the old man with his broken piece of pottery and asked him what it was. He told her the story with tears in his eyes. The girl listened carefully and then said, "But sir, if you had not dropped that vase, you would have made many more beautiful things by now. Instead, you have spent years holding one piece of broken clay. The vase is gone. But you are still here. Why are you not making something new?" The old potter had no answer. He looked at the broken piece in his hand. He looked at his dusty wheel. He looked at the girl's innocent face. And for the first time in years, he saw the truth. He had not been mourning the vase. He had been punishing himself. And in that punishment, he had lost everything else. This is what self-forgiveness asks of you. It asks you to stop punishing yourself for the vase that broke. It asks you to look at the broken piece in your hand and see it for what it really is, a piece of clay. Nothing more. It asks you to put it down, to dust off your hands, and to approach the wheel again. The Buddha spoke of something called the 5 aggregates, the components that make up what we call a self. One of these aggregates is volition, or intention. This is the part of you that makes choices, that acts, that creates. When you are consumed by self-blame, your volition becomes trapped. It circles endlessly around the past, trying to undo what cannot be undone. It is like a bird beating its wings against the bars of a cage, exhausting itself completely, going nowhere. But here is the liberating truth. The person who made that mistake, who said those words, who failed in that way, is not the same person who exists now. This is not just poetic language. This is literal truth. The cells in your body have replaced themselves many times since then. The thoughts in your mind have come and gone in countless waves. The circumstances that shaped your choices have shifted completely. You are not the same being. Imagine a river. You look at it today and say, "This is the same river I saw yesterday." But is it? The water that flowed yesterday has already reached the ocean. The water flowing now is new, fresh, different. We call it the same river only because of its continuity, not because of its identity. You are like that river. There is continuity between who you were and who you are now. But you are not identical. The water has changed. The banks have changed. The currents have changed. To hold the person you were responsible for the person you are now, in an absolute sense, is to misunderstand the nature of existence itself. Self-forgiveness is not about letting yourself off the hook. It is not about pretending that what happened did not matter. It is about recognizing that the hook no longer holds you. It is about seeing that the person who did that thing no longer exists except as a memory in your own mind. And if you continue to punish that memory, you are not punishing the one who acted. You are punishing the one who remembers. You are poisoning your own present with the ghosts of your past. The Buddha was once asked, "Who is worthy of forgiveness?" He answered, "Everyone. But especially yourself. For if you cannot forgive yourself, you will never truly believe that others can forgive you either." Let us now turn our attention to something that often blocks the path to peace. I am speaking about the illusion of control. So much of our suffering comes from the mistaken belief that we should be able to control everything that happens to us and around us. When things do not go as we wish, when people do not behave as we expect, when life throws challenges in our path, we react with frustration, anger, and despair. And then we compound this suffering by replaying these events in our minds, wishing they had been different, imagining how we could have controlled the outcome if only we had done something else. There is a story about a farmer who lived in a small village. He had one son and one horse. The horse was essential for plowing his fields and taking his goods to market. One day, the horse ran away. The farmer's neighbors came to him and said, "What terrible luck! Your horse is gone. How will you farm now?" The farmer simply replied, "Maybe yes, maybe no. We shall see." A week later, the horse returned, bringing with it 7 wild horses that had followed it back to the farm. The neighbors came again and said, "What wonderful luck! Now you have 8 horses." The farmer replied, "Maybe yes, maybe no. We shall see." The next day, the farmer's son tried to tame one of the wild horses. He was thrown off and broke his leg. The neighbors came and said, "What terrible luck! Your son cannot work now. How will you manage?" The farmer replied, "Maybe yes, maybe no. We shall see." A few days later, soldiers came to the village to conscript all able-bodied young men for a war. They rejected the farmer's son because of his broken leg. The neighbors came and said, "What wonderful luck! Your son is safe." The farmer replied, "Maybe yes, maybe no. We shall see." This story illustrates a profound truth. We label events as good or bad based on our limited perspective. We think we know how things should turn out. We believe we can control the outcome if only we try hard enough. But life has a way of surprising us. What seems like a disaster today may be the seed of tomorrow's blessing. What seems like a triumph today may lead to tomorrow's downfall. We simply do not know. The Buddha taught this as one of the fundamental characteristics of existence. He called it anicca, which means impermanence or inconstancy. Everything changes. Everything is in flux. Everything is beyond our complete control. The weather changes. Our bodies change. Our relationships change. Our thoughts change. Nothing stays the same, and nothing bends completely to our will. When you understand this deeply, something shifts inside you. You stop fighting reality. You stop demanding that life be different than it is. You stop trying to control what cannot be controlled. And in that letting go, you find a peace that is not dependent on circumstances. I once knew a man who was a master gardener. His garden was legendary in the area. People would come from miles around just to walk through it and admire its beauty. One year, a terrible storm came through the region. Hail destroyed his garden completely. Every plant was battered. Every flower was torn. Every vegetable was ruined. When I visited him a few days after the storm, I expected to find him devastated. Instead, I found him in his garden, on his hands and knees, gently tending the soil. I said to him, "I am so sorry about your garden. All that work, gone in one night." He looked up at me with a calm smile and said, "The garden is not gone. The plants are gone. But the garden is still here. The soil is still here. The sun will shine again. The rain will fall again. And I will plant again." That is what gardeners do. We do not control the weather. We only control whether we show up and plant the seeds. This is the attitude that frees us from the tyranny of the past. We cannot control what happened. We cannot control what people did. We cannot control the storms that destroyed our gardens. But we can control whether we show up today and plant new seeds. We can control where we place our attention. We can control how we respond to what life brings. The psychological term for this is acceptance. Not resignation. Not giving up. Not pretending that pain is not painful. Acceptance means acknowledging reality exactly as it is, without adding the layer of suffering that comes from wishing it were different. It means saying, "This happened. This is how I feel about it. And now, what shall I do with this moment?" The past cannot be controlled because it no longer exists. The future cannot be controlled because it does not exist yet. The only moment that offers any possibility of genuine control is this one, right now. And even here, control is limited. You cannot control whether a thought arises. You cannot control whether a memory appears. But you can control how you relate to that thought, how you respond to that memory. You can choose to feed it with attention or let it fade. You can choose to identify with it or observe it. You can choose to let it define you or simply let it be. This is where your true freedom lies. Not in controlling the world, but in controlling your relationship to it. Not in preventing storms, but in learning to dance in the rain. Not in erasing the past, but in making peace with its presence in your mind. Let us now explore something that may feel counterintuitive after everything we have discussed. I am speaking about the role of gratitude in healing from the past. You might wonder how gratitude could possibly help with painful memories. When you are haunted by regret or shame or grief, gratitude can feel like the farthest thing from your experience. But this is precisely why it is so powerful. Gratitude shifts your attention from what was lost to what remains. It redirects your focus from the wounds to the gifts that still exist. There is a story about a woman who lost everything in a fire. Her home burned to the ground. Photographs, heirlooms, letters from loved ones who had passed away, all gone in a single night. She stood outside watching the flames consume her life's memories, and she felt as though she herself was burning inside. In the days that followed, she could think of nothing but what she had lost. She replayed the fire in her mind constantly. She mourned each item individually. She fell into a deep depression that lasted for months. One day, a friend came to visit her in the small apartment where she was staying. The friend listened to her grief for a long time and then said gently, "Tell me about something you still have." The woman looked at her blankly. "I have nothing," she said. Everything burned. The friend said, "You have your hands. You have your eyes. You have your voice. You have your memories, not of things, but of the people you loved. You have this moment, right now, with me. Tell me about something you still have." At first, the woman could not think of anything. Her mind was so focused on the loss that it had become blind to everything else. But slowly, reluctantly, she began to look. She looked at her hands and remembered all the things they had done over the years. She looked at her friend and felt the warmth of connection. She looked out the window and saw the sun shining. And in that moment, something shifted. It was small, almost imperceptible. But it was real. A tiny crack of light in the darkness of her grief. This is what gratitude does. It does not erase the pain. It does not pretend the loss did not happen. But it reminds you that loss is not the whole story. It reminds you that even in the midst of suffering, there are still things to appreciate, still things to value, still reasons to continue. The Buddha taught the practice of recollecting, of intentionally turning the mind toward positive qualities. He encouraged his monks to reflect on their good fortune, on the kindness of others, on the simple gifts of being alive. This was not naive optimism. This was a deliberate mental training designed to counteract the mind's natural tendency to focus on what is wrong, what is missing, what is painful. From a psychological perspective, this makes perfect sense. The brain has a negativity bias. It evolved to pay more attention to threats than to opportunities, more attention to losses than to gains. This kept our ancestors alive on the savannah. But in the modern world, it leaves us vulnerable to depression, anxiety, and chronic unhappiness. Gratitude is the antidote to this bias. It actively rewires the brain to notice the positive, to appreciate what is good, to find light even in dark places. I once worked with a man who was haunted by a terrible mistake he had made in his youth. He had hurt someone deeply, and though decades had passed, he could not forgive himself. He carried this weight everywhere. It affected his relationships, his work, his health. In our conversations, I asked him to try a simple practice. Every night before sleep, he would write down 3 things he was grateful for that day. They could be small things, ordinary things. A good cup of coffee. A phone call from a friend. A beautiful sunset. Just 3 things. At first, he struggled. His mind was so accustomed to focusing on his past mistake that it could barely see the present at all. But he persisted. Night after night, he wrote his 3 things. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, something began to change. The present moment started to come into focus. The small pleasures of daily life began to register. The weight of the past, while still present, felt slightly less heavy. After several months, he came to me and said something remarkable. He said, "I still remember what I did. I still wish I could go back and change it. But I no longer feel that it defines me. I have come to see that my life contains many things, not just that one thing. And for all the other things, I am grateful." This is the alchemy of gratitude. It transforms a life defined by one terrible moment into a life that contains both that moment and countless others, many of them good. This does not mean you must be grateful for the painful memory itself. That would be asking too much. But you can be grateful for what remains. You can be grateful for the lessons learned, however painfully. You can be grateful for the strength you have developed through surviving. You can be grateful for the compassion you now feel for others who suffer similarly. The memory may never become a gift, but it can become a teacher. Let us now turn to a teaching that lies at the very heart of the Buddhist path. It is a teaching so simple that children can understand it, yet so profound that even the wisest sages spend their entire lives plumbing its depths. I am speaking about impermanence. The truth that everything changes. Everything passes. Everything ends. This may sound like a bleak teaching at first. When you are holding on to a happy memory, you do not want to hear that it will pass. When you are in the midst of a beautiful moment, you do not want to be reminded that it cannot last. But the teaching of impermanence is not meant to rob you of joy. It is meant to free you from suffering. Because if everything passes, then painful memories must pass too. The grief that feels eternal will not last forever. The shame that seems permanent will eventually fade. The regret that consumes you today will lose its power over time. There is a story about a woman who came to the Buddha with her dead child in her arms. She was completely beside herself with grief. She had lost her only son, and she could not accept it. She went from healer to healer, begging them to bring her child back to life. They all said it was impossible. Finally, someone directed her to the Buddha, thinking he might have the power she sought. She approached the Buddha and placed her child at his feet. She begged him, "Please, bring my son back to life. I cannot go on without him." The Buddha looked at her with infinite compassion and said, "I will bring your son back to life. But first, you must bring me a mustard seed from a house that has never known death." The woman's heart leaped with hope. She went into the village and knocked on the first door. "Do you have a mustard seed I could have?" she asked. The family gladly gave her one. But then she asked, "Has this house ever known death?" The family grew quiet. The father said, "My father died here 5 years ago." The woman thanked them and moved on, leaving the mustard seed behind. She went to the next house. And the next. And the next. At every house, she received the same answer. This family had lost a grandmother. That family had lost a child. Another had lost a husband. She went to every house in the village, and not a single one had been untouched by death. As the sun began to set, she sat down by the side of the road, exhausted and defeated. But as she sat there, something began to dawn on her. She was not alone in her suffering. Every house, every family, every person she had met had known the same pain. Death was not something that had happened only to her. It was the universal condition of all living things. Her son was gone, yes. But she was not being singled out by an unfair universe. She was simply experiencing what every human being throughout history has experienced. In that moment, her grief did not disappear. But it transformed. It softened. It opened into something larger than her own personal pain. She returned to the Buddha, not with a mustard seed, but with a new understanding. She bowed to him and said, "I see now. Everyone dies. Everything passes. My son's life was a gift, not a possession. And now that gift has been returned." She took her child's body and gave it back to the earth with a peaceful heart. This story reveals the liberating power of impermanence. When you truly understand that everything changes, you stop trying to hold on to things that are naturally passing away. You stop fighting against the flow of life. You learn to appreciate each moment for what it is, without demanding that it last forever. And most importantly for our purposes, you learn to let go of the past because you see that holding on is as futile as trying to stop the river with your hands. The past is gone. It has already passed away. The memory of it remains, yes. But that memory is itself impermanent. It arises and passes away like everything else. It only seems permanent because you keep calling it back, keep refreshing it, keep giving it your attention. But if you stop feeding it, it will fade. Not because you destroyed it, but because that is the nature of all things. They arise, they stay for a while, and then they pass away. Think about a cloud in the sky. It forms from invisible vapor. It takes on a beautiful shape. It floats across the blue. And then, gradually, it dissolves. It does not fight its dissolution. It does not try to hold itself together. It simply allows the process of change to happen. And what was once a cloud becomes rain, becomes rivers, becomes mist, becomes clouds again. Nothing is lost. Everything transforms. Your memories are like clouds. They arise from conditions. They take on certain shapes. They linger for a while. And then, if you let them, they dissolve. Not into nothingness, but into the vast sky of your awareness. They become part of the whole. They lose their sharp edges, their painful contours. They become just another part of the great landscape of your life. The Buddha said, all conditioned things are impermanent. When you see this with wisdom, you turn away from suffering. This is the path of freedom. Not fighting the past, but seeing its true nature. Not trying to make memories permanent, but allowing them to follow their natural course. Not holding on, but letting go. We have traveled a long and winding path together in this time. We have explored the nature of memory and how it can become a prison. We have examined the illusion of control and why we hold on to things that hurt us. We have discovered that trying to forget only makes memories stronger. We have learned the practice of allowing memories to fade by withdrawing our attention from them. We have touched upon self-forgiveness, gratitude, and the liberating truth of impermanence. Now, as we come to the end of our journey, I want to leave you with something practical. Something you can carry with you into your daily life. Something that will serve as a compass when you find yourself lost in the wilderness of past memories. The practice I want to offer you is simple. It has only 4 steps. You can remember them easily. And you can apply them anytime, anywhere, no matter what memory is haunting you, no matter how deep the pain, no matter how long you have been carrying it. The first step is pause. When a painful memory arises, your first instinct will be to react. To fight it, to push it away, to fall into it completely and let it consume you. This is what you have always done. This is the habit of a lifetime. But now you have a choice. Instead of reacting, just pause. Take a single conscious breath. Feel the air entering your body and leaving it. Create a tiny gap between the memory and your response. In that gap lies your freedom. In that gap lies the possibility of something new. The second step is acknowledge. Silently say to yourself, I see you. I know you are here. You are a memory from my past. Do not judge it. Do not analyze it. Do not try to figure out why it has come or what it means about you. Do not ask it to leave. Simply acknowledge its presence with the same neutrality you would offer a cloud passing through the sky. You are not welcoming it to stay forever. You are simply recognizing that it is here, right now, in this moment. The third step is investigate. Gently turn your attention to the physical sensations accompanying this memory. Where do you feel it in your body? Is there tightness in your chest? A knot in your stomach? Tension in your shoulders? Heat in your face? Coldness in your hands? A lump in your throat? Just notice these sensations without trying to change them. They are the physical footprint of the memory. They are where the past has taken up residence in your body. And like all things, they will pass. They will change. They will move through you if you let them. The fourth step is return. Bring your attention back to something neutral in the present moment. Your breath. The feeling of your feet on the ground. The weight of your body on the chair. The sounds around you, near and far. Rest here for a few moments. Let the present moment hold you like a mother holding a child. Let it remind you that you are here, now, safe, alive. The memory may still be present in the background, but you are no longer lost in it. You have returned home to yourself. Pause. Acknowledge. Investigate. Return. These 4 steps are your anchor in the storm. They will not make the storm disappear, but they will keep you from being swept away by it. They will give you a place to stand while the winds of memory rage around you. And over time, as you practice them again and again, the storms will come less frequently and with less intensity. Not because you fought them, but because you stopped feeding them with your attention. There is a story about a young woman who came to a meditation center feeling completely broken. She had been through a terrible divorce that left her bankrupt in every way that matters. She had lost her job because she could not focus on anything. She had become estranged from her children because her grief made her impossible to be around. Every moment of every day, she was haunted by memories of what she had lost and what she had done wrong. She could not sleep. She could not eat. She could not find a single moment of peace. A teacher at the center gave her a small stone. It was smooth and gray, nothing special to look at. He said, "Keep this stone in your pocket at all times. Whenever a painful memory arises, take the stone out and hold it in your hand. Feel its weight. Feel its texture. Feel its temperature against your skin. And while you are holding it, say to yourself, this is a memory. This is not my whole life. This moment, with this stone in my hand, is also real." The woman was skeptical. A stone? How could a simple stone possibly help with the overwhelming pain she was carrying? But she was desperate, so she agreed to try. She put the stone in her pocket and went about her day. The memories came, as they always did. But this time, something was different. She reached into her pocket and felt the stone. She held it in her hand. She focused on its cool smoothness, its solid weight, its simple presence. And for just a few seconds, the memory receded. The present moment became real again. She practiced this day after day, week after week. The stone became her companion, her anchor, her reminder that there was more to life than her painful past. Slowly, over time, the memories lost their power. They still came, but they no longer consumed her. She learned that she could hold the stone and hold the memory at the same time. That the memory was not all of her. That she was also this moment, this breath, this small cool stone in her hand. Years later, after much healing, she became a teacher herself. And she would give small stones to her own students, passing on the simple wisdom that had saved her life. She would tell them, the past is real. Your pain is real. But so is this stone. So is this breath. So is this moment. You get to choose where you place your attention. This is the final teaching I want to leave with you. You have a choice. Not about whether painful memories arise. They will. That is part of being human. But you have a choice about how you relate to them. You can fight them and make them stronger. You can flee from them and let them chase you forever. Or you can pause, acknowledge, investigate, and return. You can hold the stone and let the memory be just a memory. The Buddha's last words were simple and profound. He said, all conditioned things are subject to decay. Strive on with diligence. Everything passes. Our suffering will pass. Our joy will pass. Our memories will pass. But we must strive. We must practice. We must make the effort, moment by moment, to choose freedom over bondage. You have everything you need. Your breath, always available. Your awareness, always present. This moment, right now, the only moment where life actually happens. The past is a dream that has ended. The future is a dream not yet born. But this moment is real. And in this moment, you are free. Thank you for walking this path with me at Monk's Temple. If these words have been helpful, please share them with someone who might need to hear them. And remember, the stone is always in your pocket. The breath is always available. The present moment is always here, waiting to welcome you home. May you be peaceful. May you be happy. May you be free.